right, let's get into it. So Ye was on Drink Champs and he was talking about a bunch of stuff, but he got into the thing about Chicago. And I don't know if Noriega knew what he was stumbling upon, but he asked him about how come under Bill Clinton, crime went up in Arkansas, and then the Obama crime went up in Chicago. But in this video here, we're going to talk about why the Chicago violence problem is a bit, not a lot, but a bit overblown. I'm going to tell you why I left Chicago, and it's not for the reason why you think. Let's unpack. So, listen, there's a lot going on. And I'm not trying to say Chicago is a peaceful place. We all know at this current time that we're making this video, the violence rate in Chicago is 16 to 20% murder rate. Let's say that 16 to 20 per 100,000 people being killed. So that's pretty bad. We're not saying that it's not. However, new FBI statistics have already shown us that there are cities that are far outpacing Chicago when it comes to their murder rate. And many of those cities sweeping across the South. We're talking about places like New Orleans, Birmingham, Alabama. Even Atlanta, in their leading magazine, talked about how you're far more likely to be hurt in Atlanta than in Chicago. On some of the charts, we even have Chicago as low as 28th as one of the most violent cities that exist. So the question has become now that why is there so much emphasis put on Chicago? Well, the first thing like Noriega stumbled upon was that this is something that the right uses in order to indict our Democratic leaders. So it's like, well, how can he be president if Chicago is so bad and he's from there? Why didn't he do more there? But yet, they don't want to talk about how states across the South have far more violent rates than the states up north. Blue states are far below the red states when it comes to violent crimes. Even though it's by mass shootings that occur far more in the red states than the blue states. So because the cities talk about it so much, because the media talks about it so much, because everyone talks about it so much, now it's kind of been driven into everyone else's mentality that Chicago is just this most violent, gruesome place that ever existed. Now, I spent 30 years in Chicago and never experienced any type of gun violence. And I stayed on the west and the south side. So it wasn't about violence for me when I moved. It was something very shallow. I just got tired of the weather in general. That was my reason for leaving. But the idea behind it is that Chicago has this reputation from its history of being a gangster culture. We're talking about Al Capone and the mob and all those things. We're talking about the dailies and how they ran Chicago at one point in time. And so that reputation combined with the very high number that does not consider how many people are there. Now, before you at me, I understand that New York is 5 times below what Chicago is, and LA is 2.5 times below. I do understand that. However, what I am saying is that the number of just 700, which was the first time since 2016 they crossed that mark, but the number 700 or even 600 in a place with 2.8 million people is a bit low. Now, we're not saying that Chicago is safe. I'm never saying that Chicago is safe. What I am saying is that it's a bit overblown to make Chicago look like it's some type of a war zone when it's not. So the reason why I left Chicago was simply because of weather, and I just wanted to be in a climate that, to me, was always nice that I could really enjoy. That's not Chicago, but it had nothing to do with the violence. And sometimes I do miss Chicago food. Boy. And that is the real problem at the end of the day. It's a media game. And while I don't agree with everything that Kanye West says, one of the things for sure is that it is a media game. It's just unfortunate, Kanye, that you fell for that game. Well, let's pack it up. See y'all soon.